Good evening, good evening. Welcome to the Black Wall Street Show, and your temporary host right now is Devon Bell. I'm the CEO of KemeticPipeline, and I also work with the Black Wall Street Project. And, Brett will be here very, very soon. He's just a little bit tardy. You know how it is when you're trying to get from one point to another on the freeway. But while he's on his way, we're going to cover some pretty interesting topics. We're going to be dealing with certain esoteric layers that can actually, keep our people from being able to, make appropriate responses, appropriate decisions as it relates to becoming successful. And I think that's a very important key, because when we start thinking about success comes in so many different ways. If you have to travel a mile just to get some water so that you could quench your thirst, and you make the trip, and you complete it, that's successful. Success is not just, dead presidents. Success can be just how many of the goals that you set for yourself you actually achieve. So when we're dealing with esoteric principles as it relates to that, I think I want to kind of add things where it's a little bit more of a scientific type of twist to it, because, it's unfortunate, but, the miseducation of our people and the miseducation of a lot of people that's walking around on this earth, it's a very disappointing thing when we do not know how to put together the proper measures of conjectures and everything else that goes along with it. And when we start dealing with esoteric principles, we're dealing with really spiritual science. And underline that word science, because, a lot of times individuals get caught up in religiosity, and as they do go along their course and their processions of ceremonial this and ceremonial that, they think that they're having a spiritual experience by all of the different ceremonies. And it doesn't matter which religion individuals with. They still have, a yearly calendar where around certain parts of the year they do certain things, or a certain time of the day they'll do a certain prayer, or, they'll look to the east, or they'll do whatever it is that they do for the reasons that they do it. Now, I'm not condemning any measurement of that activity whatsoever. But really, when you start dealing with the subject matter that we're dealing with is the esoteric layers as it relates to the manifestation of success. And, it's not just a situation that I personally have just thought about. I came from some great parents, God rest their soul. I just lost both of them about 12 months ago. And, I grew up in what I thought was spiritual things, as I evolved, as I became a little bit more knowledgeable, I started finding out that I was dealing more with ceremonial things and not things that had to do with the spirit. Because the spirit is something that's real, touchable, tangible. You are something that's real, touchable, tangible. You can weigh the human spirit. I mean, it's something that's scientifically present. So when we start dealing with the esoteric layers and how we can turn around here and find ourselves being successful, we do want to at least acknowledge the fact that it's not a external, fuzzy feeling, you're trying to reach your rhema or whatever the case may be. It's really a situation where the science part kicks in, because we start dealing with the autonomy of how we are built as creatures, how we function as creatures, and when we start dealing with human response and all these other different things, you cannot leave out the science, the mechanisms, the mechanical things that just operate, the operations of law, as you would look at it. And when you start understanding a lot of this stuff a little bit more, you can find yourself becoming a little bit more successful, because you're not in a daze. You know what I mean? You're not abstractly reaching for something. You don't really know what it is, but in the meantime, I'll be doing this until I figure out what it is. That weird gooey feeling that you can sometimes fall into, those weird psychoses where, you turn around and you look up and it's the year 2002, and then you fall into that dull psychosis, and then you fall back out, and now it's 2005, and you're like, what happened to 3 years? What have I really done in 3 years? What did I really, I know I went to work, I came home, I fed the kids, I did whatever, but what did I really do? You know what I mean? So if you if you see that you have certain measurements of patterns where we can lull ourselves over into that measurement of unsuccessfulness, which means we're not achieving some of the goals that we set out. Every beginning of the year, you turn around and you say, hey, let's achieve this goal for the year. And then you set out to do it. You make your New Year's resolution. Now, whether you achieve it or not, it's still a reflection on a goal was set. Did you succeed? Did you not? What distracted you? What kept you away from that? So when we talk about this subject matter, this is really something that you really want to kind of like get a little bit closer to the radio for, because this is something that really goes to the heart of Black Wall Street. We could talk about numbers. We could talk about quick ratios. You know what I mean? We could talk about inventory rollover. We could talk about all kind of different mechanisms. But sometimes when we start talking about esoteric issues, when we start talking about astrology, when we start talking about as above, so below, when we start talking about numerology, when you start talking about all the things that, proto or predated the church getting involved with so many of the different educational issues that separated spiritual science from what they call modern science. So they leave in the observation. All of us taking, chemistry classes and things, and the first thing you learn is observation. You look at the flame, you talk about, is it hot, does it flicker, does it rise, does it shrink, when did it go out? You start doing your little observation principles. And you say, oh, okay, that's science. Science is observation. Okay, I could go with that. But understanding spiritual science, it has a connection with your success with business also. Now, am I going to share with you, you do a little chant and everything work out? No. But what I am trying to set the stage for is wanted to share with you some things that on a personal level, I did some extremely serious research on. Matter of fact, I've written 3 books about it because, I just wanted to know. And as I started doing all the research and doing all the different investigations and doing all the different interviews with the different individuals as it related to it, I started finding out some interesting truths, and it dispelled a lot of interesting falsehoods. And, as I started looking at it, I started having more of an appreciation for spiritual science. I started understanding a little bit more about the mechanics of spiritual science. I understand why people that practice spiritual science make spiritual science more taboo for those that they try to control, manipulate through hyperdimensional warfare. You can't practice it, but I'll practice it. And it doesn't matter what religion you go into. When you start going up the higher ranks, you start finding out, oh, they deal with spiritual science. It all makes sense now. But why did they tell us we couldn't deal with spiritual science? Because it all had to do with population control. It had to do with whether or not I can control you from succeeding, because if I could keep you from succeeding from your goals, that means that my goals are intact. I could keep reliving the generational wealth. My family will stay wealthy 3, 4, 5 generations deep. We'll gobble up all the assets. We'll get the reading rainbow tracks, and we'll get the reading railroads and all that other kind of stuff. And you'll just be a participant because we would have sopped everything up. But I got to make sure that I know the spiritual science, but I'm not trying to tell you the spiritual science. As a matter of fact, it's kind of interesting because, I'm going to use Christianity for a while. I'm not trying to beat it up or anything. But when you start dealing with the origins, you start dealing with the Catholic Church and, the individuals that actually ruled in the reality of what they called, the Word of God. It was the Catholic Church that did it. They would note that, don't do this, don't do that. They wrote it in the book. But on their flag, the Catholic flag, they got the cross keys. Now, the keys that they have is called the Keys of Solomon. And those keys has to do with tarot cards and how to lay out the tarot cards a certain way and blah, blah, this and blah, blah, that, and how that connects to the ethers in the universe and all kind of spiritual science stuff that the average person just don't connect to because it's forbidden. It's for the elite individuals, but it's not for the common man. So they scare the common man. Don't do this. Don't do that. Don't soothsay. Don't do crystal balls. Don't do blah, 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 blah. So we go into a little box and we freeze up and we don't do anything. And I have to share this with you because I did a lot of interviews with a lot of different individuals just trying to get the facts, just like a roving reporter, not trying to practice this, not trying to practice that, not trying to, just really just ask. I want to know what a pagan do. I want to know what a Wiccan do. I want to know what a real witch does. I want to know. And I really went out there and I interviewed them just like Scooby-Doo going on a mystery hunt. You know what I mean? Jumping the Scooby-Doo mystery van and going out there and do the things, and I found out some interesting stuff. I found out some really interesting stuff. And this is why I'm trying to share this. Not to purchase the books I wrote. I mean, you can always go on Amazon.com or Barnes & Noble, and you can order, any book by Divine Bell, Searching for Nod, or He That Has an Ear, Let Him Hear, or, any of those things, which it deals with the journey of exploration. That's all it does with. It's not partial to any religion. It's just really the journey for exploration as a person come out of the dogmatic stage and start dealing more with the science stage and start dealing with what's really real and what's really happening here. Now, with all that being said, and this is very important, is the fact that we as people that are trying to make things happen, we have to understand that there are certain esoteric principles that are presently at work by individuals that don't like you and they don't like me. And they practice their craft, and it's effective. It's extremely effective. And, what I want callers to do tonight is, and Brett should be here very shortly, is to be able to, really just kind of like think of like the introduction that I'm trying to share with you. I'm not trying to champion the reality of spiritual science because it's real whether you believe it or not. It doesn't even require your belief. Can you wrap your head around what I just said? It doesn't require belief because it's real. And anything that's true can never occupy the same space as belief on any given point, on any time, any day. If you believe it, it's not true. If it's true, it don't require belief. That is a statement of fact. That is not just some cute little thing that I say. That's the truth. So it's not a situation that requires belief. Well, I don't believe in this, and I don't believe. Well, you don't have to believe. It don't require belief. It just is. There is an atmosphere. There is an ocean. There are wells in the ocean. You don't have to believe it. It's just a statement of fact. You know what I mean? It don't require belief. So when we start talking about how do we make money, how do we advance, how do we do this, how do we do that, whether you watch a movie, the shows The Prophet or Rescue Bar or, with Taffer or, Restaurant Impossible or anything like that, one thing you're going to find is that a lot of times they keep saying, hey, do you know your numbers? Do you know this? Do you know that? What are the facts? What are the facts that get you to where you're going? Not your belief. We got 99% of the world believing something, but that don't mean that 99% of the world is wealthy. Facts are facts, and results don't lie. It tells the truth each and every time, even if we don't want to accept it, because we'll rather go into the world of make-belief than to go into the world of statements of facts. And that's where, and when Brett get on the line in a few moments, that's where we can really make a run with it, make a real examination of this whole situation and deal with everything accordingly as it relates to it. So, I just want you to meditate on that. There's so much more I would love to share. I mean, if you want to go buy the books, you can definitely go buy the books. I also have e-books. You can email me at divine@KemeticPipeline.com and say, hey, I would like to get a copy of an electronic book for my, my Nook or whatever the case may be. And it kind of helps detangle some of the insanity that keeps people from being successful. So, I'm putting that out there. I want you to meditate on it. We're going to be bringing on Brett, which is normally the host of Black Wall Street. But that's why I just wanted to share that with you guys. I wanted to share that with the listening audience because I think that's something that's really tantalizing, something that we can really, sink our teeth in and we can kind of, really connect to once we realize that these spiritual science, hence the word science, is things based on facts. It's not based on hope, belief. I believe this, you believe that. Well, my belief is true, which is oxymoronic. A belief can never be true. It can stand on the side of truth. It can just so happen be the same thing as the truth, but it can never be that my belief is I believe this is true, therefore it's true. And that's no. That go back and get some grammar. That's impossible. It can't do that. It's an either or. There's a lot of believers in this world. There's very few truers. So I share this with you guys. I'm going to check to see if Brett's on the line, and if so, I wanted to welcome.
The conference is now in conversation mode.
Yes, Brett, are you there yet, or? Okay.
Mr. Brother, can you hear me?
Oh, there he goes. Okay, yes. I don't know if he was listening to the introduction to the show, but I was sharing with the listening audience, just setting the foundation for the esoteric layer. Different things like astrology and all these other different things are, scientific facts. They're not, I believe in that, I don't believe in this. Belief is not even required for this kind of material. It's just scientific facts. But the thing about it is, I was setting the precedence for our listening audience to start pondering and considering. And I want to ask you, because, you came up with the show and you kind of put it out there. What is some of the things that touch you most about the esoteric layers and how that affects the success of the actual businessman?
First of all, I want to say thank you for opening up for me tonight. Everything happens for a reason. And the subject matter and the knowledge that you were expounding on, it just fits so perfectly to what the subject matter was for the show tonight. And please excuse me as well for getting into the show a little late, had a little situation. But however, I would say that the law of as it is above, so below, is most fascinating. And you said that just a few moments ago, talking about that law. So when you're talking about spiritual science, heaven and earth meet in spiritual science. As it is above, so it is below. We're dealing with universal laws in the larger realm that are also relevant to the physical or earthly realm as well. And this is what we often miss. So when you're talking about how it doesn't require belief, it's real, it's there. And I want to kind of give you an example of what I'm saying when I say as above and so it is below. Last week we were going in on cosmology. We were talking about astronomy last week. And I was talking about the relationship of the earth to the universe, and I was explaining how our ancestors were able to do marvelous things because they understood astronomy. And by understanding astronomy, they have a great comprehension of the atomic world. Now, we didn't necessarily have telescopes and powerful microscopes that we used in our recent ancient civilizations. Now we certainly could have because we had that technology. But the correlation is, as I mentioned, if you look at an atom with electrons going around it, it looks just like a star system when you look at it. And I remember I used to sit in school, and that thought crossed my mind a couple of times. This looks just like little planets orbiting around a nucleus right here. And the reality of it is that as it is above, so it is below. It's the same thing. It's just different proportions. God is ultimate simplicity, so he creates on the most simplistic level, and that's why by studying nature you can understand the most detailed scientific concepts. So with that understanding, if a sun is literally a nucleus and the planets that are orbiting the sun are literally electrons, but giant electrons. The sun is a giant nucleus, the planets are giant electrons. So if that's the case, then now you have a proportion here. So what is the Earth made up of? If we're literally planets are electrons, then what makes up the Earth? Well, atoms make up the Earth. Atoms make up all material things. So now if you have a proportion to say that an electron is a planet and a sun is a nucleus, we're starting to set up proportions here. So how big is the atom as compared to the Earth? If you could take the entire Earth and put an atom next to it, you got a proportion there. Now, I went further into this last week when I was talking about the laws of creation and when I was talking about black root science and how our ancestors actually created planets. So last week I went a little further. But Our Earth is 7,900 miles across, just a bit more, 7,926 to be exact. And our solar system, this star system that we live in, is 7,900,000,000 miles across. Now check out the similarity in proportion. Our star system is 7,900,000,000 miles across, and the Earth is 7,900 miles across. It's the exact same thing. It couldn't possibly be a mistake. So now you have a proportion where our star system is 1,000,000 times bigger than the Earth. And so now you have the Earth as an electron is the same proportion as it would be for a star system, or excuse me, a nucleus to an electron. Same thing.
Amazing. Simply amazing.
Same thing. 7,900,000,000 miles across for the star system, 7,900 miles across for the Earth. So our star system is exactly 1,000,000 miles larger than the Earth. So our ancestors, in understanding what they were looking at, they knew proportions. They had it mapped out in their mind. As above, so it is below. So they could watch the orbits of the planets and the motions of the planets as they move around the star systems and understand how atoms work, understand how the orbits of electrons work by watching the orbits of the planets, because they learned in two sciences at the same time. So when we talk about spiritual science, this is exactly what we're talking about, and some people like to call it magic. You know, whatever name you want to give it. You know, I guess that's the taboo label that you were talking about, that people like to put on things. But it's actually manipulation of mind over matter. Everything is made up of atoms. Even your thoughts are electricity.
You know, what you're saying is such a profound thing. I didn't want to be rudely to interrupt, but I just want to touch on things because, like I shared with you about the extensive study that before I even wrote books, you know, the book's only a summation of what you study. You know, I went really deep into really just understanding the truth about everything. I wanted to know everything. I did not want to assume anything. If somebody say, hey, this was a book from God, I want to know why they say that. I didn't want to just assume it. I said, no, tell me why. And then, like I pointed out with the Catholic Church, you know, then you find out, it was the Catholic Church that did their decree and says, I deem this holy. And then from that moment on, it was what it was through the, you know, the English Church, which offset of the Catholic Church in this whole situation. And you find out the more the historicity of how this thing came into existence in 1611 and all this other stuff. But I'm just using that as one example. Or the Book of Chronicles, like the Quran. But what the word that you just mentioned was very interesting because you said, you know, magic. You know what I mean? You know, now the people that practice magic will tell you it's taboo to practice magic, if you know what I'm trying to say. But let's talk about magic for just 2 seconds, and then you can go ahead and continue. Magic or magician is really a measurement of knowledge. You have your associate's degree, your bachelor's degree. You have your master degree, which means you master the subject matter. You have your doctoral, which means that you could dissect the subject matter. And then you have another degree, which means called the priestly degree, which means that you are starting to manipulate matter and you're starting to manipulate different things of what you call flux matter, because you have more of an understanding of electromagnetic fields and how it responds to you and the human mind and everything else. And then the final degree was called the magi, or the magician. But that had to do with degrees of knowledge. And, you know, a lot of times because people are caught up in religion, they would, oh, my God, magic. Wait, what y'all talking about now? Oh, I can't be involved with that. Well, of course you can, because somebody told you not to be a part of it. And I'm not saying to be a part of it, and I'm not saying not to be a part of it, but the reality is we have to stop living in fear and bugabooed, and let's deal with just the science. And based on the science, and what you're pointing out is so phenomenal when we talk about the measurement of the earth and everything else, just based on the science. Scientifically, is this information true? Yes. Bottom line, belief is not required. You can use it. I don't believe it. Okay, then don't believe it. That's something between you and your psychosis. But it's a statement of fact with or without your participation. That may be alarming, but there's a lot of things operating without your participation. And on a subconscious level, it's operating because of your participation. But you have to be conscious enough to know. But I just wanted to insert that about the magician and the magi. But you're right on hit, Brett. I'm enjoying this.
Oh yes, certainly. You know, there was a time in my life, when you know, you would hear Well, for one thing, they put the word black with magic and call it black magic. And that's one of those taboo things to keep our people away from getting closer to their melanated roots and getting closer to science. When the Greeks went to ancient Kemet thousands of years ago, when we first began to let them in to our inner circles, our inner sanctums, the priest class began to let them in, and they would teach the wisest of the Greek people, those who had the most potential. And that's how you get your Platos that go to Kemet and study for 30 years, and they teach them a little bit of knowledge, and you get your Pythagoras and all that type of thing. So when they went to Kemet, they were so awed by what the priest class was doing. You know, for example, turning base metals into gold. They actually saw that. The word chemistry comes from Kemet. It's the science from Kemet, chemistry. So to them, it was magic. And later on, when they couldn't do what we do, and we began to kind of get interested, they started calling it black magic. And of course, further on down the road, it started to get a very ugly name. But basically, what we're referring to as magic is a spiritual science. Everything in this universe has, if it's mass, it has some kind of weight and volume to it, the manipulation of atoms with the mind. And I was starting to say before, when I was talking about the lie, what do you call those lie detectors? I can't remember the name of that graph right now off the top of my head. But however, when they do the lie detector test, they hook your little electrodes up to your head, and then they ask you questions, and they start watching the little graph bounce up and down and try to figure out whether you're lying or not. So your brain is constantly emitting electrical signals, constantly running off electricity. And we know that electricity is a powerful substance that can actually manipulate things. So it is the mind of our ancestors, the concentration, that allows them to manipulate atoms with electrical signals from the brain. And it's real. We all have electricity surrounding our bodies, or we all watch the Matrix, the machines plugged into the human beings and use their energy as batteries. So we are connected to the outside world by electricity, even though we don't look at it that way. So we have an electromagnetic aura around our body. That electromagnetic aura can interface with matter when your thought is tuned properly. And that is what we call magic. The words, powerful words, and manipulating your electromagnetic aura on the material world on the outside. It's nothing spooky. It's all scientific once you begin to study it. Like you said, it seems a little odd at first, but when you dig into it, you start saying this is something that can come right out of a science book as well. And I think the significance of this, as far as dealing with Black Wall Street, is that we're starting to deal with actual facts, numbers, and we're rising up to our potential. You and I talked on the phone a little bit ago, and we were talking about our potential. I mentioned our people underachieving, and I think that is one of our largest issues right now. We have all this intelligence in us. We have great leadership, but as a people, we are underachieving because we are not stepping into the greatness that is our nature. We're fearing it. We're listening to too many people telling us, don't go here, don't listen to that, don't study this, don't study that. It's 2014 now. We shouldn't be listening to anybody that's telling us, don't read this book. I mean, think logically. Why would somebody tell you don't read a certain book? It just makes no sense.
Very good point.
Yeah, go ahead.
Hey, guys, this is Jonathan Sinclair.
Hey, John.
It's very difficult for me to kind of sit back and listen to you guys say the word science, especially spiritual science, and not say anything. Because in the study group that we've been in, been a part of here in Dayton, that's been my thing. My thing is, I don't just tell me stuff. I want to understand. I'm like Devon. I want to understand how it works, because I understand that it is knowledge. Back in the ancient times, I mean, people in modern times, people look back on ancient times and assume that people were savages. They were just figuring out how to make fire. The wheel was this magical thing. Like, there's so many assumptions about that time frame when our ancestors were very intelligent. And because they were observing the stars, they had a measurement of science. That was science. And the way that they would communicate that science is different from the way that we communicate science in modern times, because they use both sides of their brain, meaning they use the logical side and the creative side, so that they would actually combine that information into one. And so the way that they understood science was through stories, was through different sort of anthropomorphized characters and things like that. But these were scientific things. They were talking about the laws of physics, the laws of nature. They didn't have to call it physics. They didn't have to call it biology. These words are, made to make people feel smart. But if you actually understand what they're talking about, it is very much science. And one of the things that I wanted to say, because you're talking about, almost the allowance factor of whether or not people are allowed to read certain things. Really, when we got hit with Christianity especially, and understand when I say Christianity, it's really someone else's interpretation of a book that really has nothing to do with us. But the way that we were basically enslaved by it. And so in that religion, and in many respects, there's nothing wrong with religion. It's a way to, through ritual, unlock your own mind. It's just the way that people use it is oftentimes wrong. I'll just say wrong. But there's different ways that you can unlock your own mind, and a lot of times that does have to do with a lot of belief. If you believe in a certain thing, then it does have a certain effect on your mind. And when you understand it, it may not necessarily have the same effect. But in the Bible, they mention the Witch of Endor, they mention magic, and they make it very much a taboo type thing. They don't say that it doesn't work. They don't say that it's like necessarily even evil or whatever, but the assumption is that anything that doesn't come from the God of the Hebrews or the God of the Israelites is wrong, and it's evil, and it's of the devil. That's what is taught to us to help enslave us, because we need to understand that the things that come from our own minds, we have power in our own minds. But if we're made to believe that anything that comes from us is evil because it's not coming from this other God, then we're going to suppress our own power. And that's really how a lot of the slavery works. It's not direct slavery. It's we are enslaving ourselves according to someone else's book.
That's very well said, Jonathan, with the way you're saying it, because we are hyper-dimensional beings. And that's why the individuals that work against our people, they use hyper-dimensional warfare, which means similar to like what you just said. You said it so eloquently. You could take the substance of a content of any measurement of a subject matter, and you can turn it malevolent. You could turn it evil. You know what I mean? You can use psychology for evil. You can use the mere fact that you can make something explode, and you can make an atomic bomb, and you can use it for evil. You can make bullets. You can do all things. But these things are just natural things and natural elements trying to coexist in this universe. It's up to the person to pervert that and convert it into something that's evil. And with what you're saying, it's so true about how, with the hyperdimensional warfare, how they took simple principles and then they made it dark. They made it something that it would be. And a lot of times you won't never, until you really interview these people that practice these different crafts, you really don't realize how close a witch is just as close as a Christian, and how a Christian is as close as Islam and all this other stuff, because they're just people. They're just beautiful people, but they are dealing with different sets of consciousness. But, the boogaboo is to separate us, like you said, instead of embracing and saying, hey, what is this really all about now? Now, you said that's a belief system. Now, you know that belief is just a belief. It's in the world of belief. It's not in the world of what's real. Yeah, but this is my belief. Oh, okay, well, go ahead. Spit game. You know what I mean? Whatever the case may be, it is what it is. And what you're pointing out is it's a sad thing, but it's true. A lot of our people are held hostage based on some of these beliefs. And what they need to do is come a little bit more. And I'm not trying to condemn a person's religion or hurt a person's feelings. I know the warfare is strong. I know the spells are intense. And the mind automatically shuts down, and they say, oh, what are y'all doing now? Oh, my gosh, boo, 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 boo. They get scared at a moment's notice. But come out of the land of fear and come out of the land of make-believe. It's okay to deal with facts. Let's just deal with raw facts. Belief is not even required in this conversation. You know what I mean? And you'll be amazed at how you can traverse from one point to another and start accelerating your life because you're dealing with facts of science and not just a belief system of restrictions.
And even the word, even the words that we're dealing with, the terms are very much corrupted. Like if you're talking about belief, a lot of times that is corrupted into something where people automatically assume that it's belief in a deity, an outside deity. Whereas it really doesn't matter what you believe, just like it doesn't matter really what words you use in an incantation or a spell. That's not where the power is. The power is in your belief. If you say it in a way that makes you believe it, or you're repeating it, and it's what you do in order to make it powerful within your own mind. That's where the power is. So you can believe anything you want. It doesn't make it true, but you can believe it. It's really just how you convince yourself that unlocks whatever the true power is in your own mind. That, like Brett said, you have this electromagnetic field and you're able to interface with the outside world. Because basically our minds are computers. I mean, literally computers. And if you look at a computer network and how everything is connected together, we are connected together. It's just that we don't see the wire. It's wireless. It's a wireless system. Go ahead.
But what I was going to say was what you're saying is so true. And, so much like I said, I did a lot of interviews before writing the books, just getting other people's, viewpoints and then checking the facts, delineating between what's opinion and what's factual about what this person had said. And, when you're interviewing the witches, they share with you, hey, spelling is spelling. It's all about spells, I before E, except after C. All of that stuff has to do not with grammar that your school teacher taught you, but how to be more dysfunctional in your spelling. And with all that being the case, when we start dealing with certain different things, and what the weakness was trying to point out as I was doing the interviews with them was the fact that, you could turn around here, your mind can bind itself to a subject matter and bring about the formation of the object. And I'll say, no, okay, so you're talking about like the Book of Formations or something? They say, yeah, there is a Book of Formations. But the thing is, we have the power to speak things into existence. We have the power to, use the word and create universes. Hence the words university. But when you start dealing with the whole situation, they was breaking down to me the difference between a consonant and a vowel, and how a vowel binds to the spirit and then reaches out and bring about the manifestation of different situations. And it was a real deep spiritual science. It wasn't just an opinion. It wasn't just, oh my gosh, didn't you run from them? Oh, God is going to be mad at you because he only wants you to be with the good people. None of that silliness. You know what I mean? It was just someone just saying, hey, this is how science works in me. And I say, hey, let me check this out. Hey, thank you for the interview. And I'm going to check out to see if what they were saying is true. And when I started dealing with the laws and principles of electricity, you have your negative, you have your positive, and guess what? You have your ground. You have your ground, your negative, your positive, and then you can have reverse bias or forward bias as it relates to that. And guess what? Something do binds to something. Something do connects to source. That's what the ground is all about when you plug things into the wall. And that's the exact same thing with the human being. So everything that you're saying, I agree with it 100% only because I did the investigation. This is not just your opinion. There are scientific mathematical formulas that back up everything you're saying.
I was just thinking how simple it is and how powerful our thoughts and minds are. and how the mind can manipulate the material world. I mean, the most basic thing is, think about something that just absolutely terrifies you and watch what physically happens to your body. So for, those of us who think that thoughts aren't actually something, thoughts are real. They are substance. You can think the most happy thought.
Part of it is, I think, is just the realization that you are in the matrix, because the fact is that the material world is a figment of our imagination. We make it up because the material world is made out of energy, and energy is not solid. What we see around us is mostly empty space. Just the same way that you're talking about the solar system, and we see that as being mostly empty. The same way, the same thing exists in an atom. It's mostly empty, but it's the motion, it's the energy that actually creates that illusion of solidity and even we could fall through the ground if it wasn't for the charge that exists when you have basically two different objects coming together. It actually, they repel each other. Just like if you have two magnets of the same polarity, they repel. So, the world that we see around us is just, it looks tangible. It looks solid, and to us it is, but that's our perception. But really, everything is energy. So if your thoughts are energy and the world around you is energy, why can't you change the things around you?
So, something, I just want to interject this real quick just to really add to this. And, people can take it whatever way they want to take it. You can do with this information whatever you want, but there's a reality to that. There are certain individuals that have obtained a certain measurement of consciousness of the magician, or what you call the magi. And they can do some things that are phenomenal. Now, of course, they play things off. You see these magicians out here in Las Vegas. You can talk about the Chris Angels or the David Blaines, and they go, oh, no, it's just an illusion. It's just, well, of course it's an illusion because you want to get a paycheck. But the reality is some of that stuff you do is real stuff. You really do some mind freak stuff, but the other stuff is more, illusionary. You go, oh, okay, let me show you how to do that. I understand that because the human mind as a totality, as a per capita, when you're dealing with memetics, the human mind can't handle the truth. So, of course, you got to play it off. Oh, yeah, I just made a plane just disappear. Well, how did you do it? I did it with mirrors. But some of these guys have really magically obtained the broadness of scope of knowledge where they could do some phenomenal things with matter because they've hit that plateau. And there's so much to this thing that when you start understanding, and I think that's what all three of us brothers on this phone is trying to do, is to just try to bring about the thing to say, hey, listen, you are the person that you've been waiting for. Your success is well within hand. I'm not going to say that you make this incantation or that incantation or this ookity-bookity-book or that, and all of a sudden everything just work out for you. We're not pushing any of those things. The only thing that we're pushing is the exact same thing that's written on the walls in Egypt. And it says, know thyself. And when you start exploring knowing thyself, all the other answers come to you because the truth is in you, as above, so below. And you'll be amazed how everything else will start falling in place. And you get rid of the fear, because the fear only is for the unknown. You're not afraid of anything you know about. You're afraid of things you don't know about. You know what I mean? And don't live your life through fear, and, we could be a lot more successful. But, I just wanted to point that out for the listening audience because this is such a deep conversation, but it's pretty surface enough for people to really connect to. But the reality of it is coming from love from Jonathan. It's coming from love for Brett. I know it's coming from love for me because we're just really just trying to share with individuals. We're not trying to push a certain religion on anybody. We're just saying, hey, some of the stuff that you're experiencing and the reason why you're not moving forward is because you may not know you have a spell on you. You may not know the type of dimension work has been done on you. You say, oh, I got bad habits. Well, I keep breaking them. So when you start dealing with the reality of human behavior, you start finding out the human mechanics, how to break those bad behaviors that keep you from being successful. And it's a self-journey. It's an initiation. It's a self-initiate. It's not a situation where we just pass out of books, and I wrote books. and then all of a sudden you just run off and you're just successful. It's a situation where you come to an awakening, and then you come to another awakening, and then you come to another awakening, and then you come to another awakening, and you start broadening your scope of consciousness as it relates to a lot of different things. And, that's why I wanted to give a little props to like David Blaine and them. And I'm not saying that they don't do some things evolutionary, but I'm just saying, if you really want to deal with the truth, some of those things are real. I'm just going to put it out there.
Oh yeah, I definitely believe that. And Jonathan made a comment a little bit earlier, and it kind of brought my mind to the fact that we're underachieving when he talked about us not using both sides of our brain effectively. There's a dormancy to the way our mind is working, and from listening to your brothers talking, and it's amazing because from week to week, and even in conversation on the show, I come on with the subject, and when we get to talking in person, man, it's like I learn even more than the time that I even took to write something. It's just amazing. I get elevated from conversation, and some things I come to realize just from our talk. And I think our underachieving as a people is partly or greatly due to the fact that we are denying our true essence. We're denying our true spiritual science self. That other part of the brain that's dormant is because, hey, I don't want to read that book, or I don't want to hear that, that stuff. And that is what's keeping us underachieving as a people, because we don't want to let that part of ourself, which is greater than the physical body, grow the way we should. We want to just grow it in one specific way that we were taught when we were children, and that's the way I know, and that's the way I'm sticking to it. I'm not changing. But in reality, knowledge, we don't even live long enough in these days and times to really gather all the knowledge that we should have about ourselves. We really would have to live a few thousand years to really get the knowledge of ourselves that our ancestors once had. But we get so caught up with a little bit of knowledge that we get. We do a little bit of study, we read a little bit of book here, a little bit of book that. We walk around and we play like, okay, I got this. And then those people who think they got it, other people who don't hardly study and listen to the people and look up to the leadership of the people who say they got it, and they just stay right there. So you got two classes of people, one that think they got it, and so they're in the state of mental death, and the other ones who don't even study at all. And I think that kind of really describes our community right now in the state of stagnation. Because the last thing I wanted to say, because I wanted to kind of bring it up to a current news event, because I'm looking at this thing in the NBA. What's the guy's name that made the comments about the prejudice comments? The Clippers owner. Yeah, and the response that the brothers are giving to this, it bothers me so much. And I'm talking about underachieving right now, because their response to this is so predictable. Anyone could have seen that. As soon as it happened, I figured, okay, some brothers would be at halftime standing up, trying to do some kind of protest at halftime. I saw it coming, and sure enough, they were doing it. And the whole thing is about getting this guy out the league. If this guy leaves the league tomorrow, what is that going to do for black people? What in the world are we going to gain? But he's still going to leave. He's still going to be a billionaire the next day. Right. He's still going to think we're niggas. It ain't going to make no difference. The problem is that no individual group can rise above the condition of their people. Now, if they were achieving and an alive and an awakened black man, their response would have been, man, we're millionaires, but this guy still thinks that black people are subclass.
Well, no, the thing is, I gotta add this. The thing is, power is relative. When these white people who set up these sports organizations, they're really creating a machine, and the only reason why they're allowing black people to participate at all is because we're entertainment. And we make them so much more money that to give us millions is no sweat off of their back. It's really nothing. It's really like doing something to the circus animals, because you know that they're drawing the crowd for you, and that's how you're making your money. But for them, there's no respect for the millions that NBA player is making, because it's really nothing compared to what some of the other people are making, the owners. I mean, as far as he's concerned, these people are on the field niggas. As long as the house, relatively speaking, then it is what it is. I mean, and the fact is that we are playing into their game. We have to create our own game, and that's the only way that you will get respect.
100% right. 100% right. The most shocking thing to me was not even so much what he said about the girl or whatever, Magic Johnson. The worst thing what he said was, I fed them, and these guys have all the talent. They're the ones running up and down the court. But he says he gave them all this. You know, and when there's one person who thinks like that, I'm sure there's many white people. I would say most white people in power like that think like that.
Right.
You know, it's a wake-up call to all these black people who think they got it and they made it and everything, you know. I gave that to you. You know, you're nothing without me, you know. And so it goes to the whole presence of our condition in America. You know, if a group of people think that we exist at the mercy of another race, we're never going to ever get respect. And that respect, if you have a little bit of money in your pocket, you may not feel it. But to the average person, the rank and file black people, the massively working black people, that is really damaging. Knowing that you're born into a race of people that no matter what you do, you're never going to get respect. If the black millionaires, black people look up to, don't get respect, Magic Johnson doesn't get respect, what does that say about the average black person working out here in the thing? So that's a grave situation we face when we decided to become Americans. We decided to play the white man's game, you know? And we're at a crossroads in our history. You know, we're at a crossroads in our history because, you know, we bought into the American system, we bought into America, and we loved America, but there was a price that paid. We sold a part of our soul away. You know, we sold our dignity. You know, that's just my humble opinion. You know. Right.
And I have to plug Spiral Funding and the things that Black Wall Street is working on, because this is the problem when you are not owners. It's very simple. If they own the company and you are working for them, then they feel that they have power over you. Because if they want to fire you, guess what? They can fire you. You think you're making millions? Guess what? They can still fire you. And as long as they have that relationship, we are not equal. And they don't see us as equals. And they're not going to respond to our emotional reactions, or our emotional outbursts, how we feel about our situation. They don't care. Now, when they get caught and it starts to hurt their pocketbook because society starts to judge them because it's not politically correct, then they might...
Let me give you another example. This is a caller, by the way, everybody knows. Bill Maher, right? I was actually shocked. I never liked Bill Maher. And and just his last show, it just shows me why I never liked him. He basically almost took the side of Don Stokes. You know, he was like, basically, you should be able to say what you want, and this, that, without being punished. In other words, basically, there's this thing that a lot of white men think, whether they're liberal or not, that there's something that they could say and get away with. Look at Rush Limbaugh. He's making comments talking about Boko Haram wasn't labeled a terrorist because they're black. This guy has said so many things offensive, and they're allowed to get away with it. But black people, we have to walk around. And another thing is, why is it our millionaires, they feel they got to crack watermelon smiles and be like a big gumbo and be loved all the time? And like I said, one thing I did like, people criticize Michael Jordan, but one of the things he did say, and I'm going to get his book, he said, he grew up disliking white people. You know, a lot of people are shocked that he would basically say that, you know. A lot of white people are, like, shocked. They're, like, saying, well, the bottom line, if you really go to it, there's no black person in America that doesn't have some ambivalence towards white people. But white people don't want to hear that. They want to hear once you make your millions and everything is all forgiven. And you have to sell out your pain, your suffering. You have to forget your ancestors and all the stuff like that. And that's what it is. Almost every successful black person, the one thing you have to do is distance yourself from the pain and suffering of your people. You know.
I'm gonna take a very controversial opinion right now, and I'm gonna agree with Bill Maher, Bill Maher used to have a show called Politically Incorrect. So the reason why he has this position is because he does not like political correctness. And for me, I think that everybody should be able to be honest. If that's how you really feel, then go ahead and say it. If people don't like it, it's supply and demand. This is a capitalistic society. It's supply and demand. So if I don't like it, then guess what? I'm not going to listen to you. You lost this business over here. I don't have nothing to do with you. But that's you.
Let me ask you this.
And I'm going to say whatever I want to say, too.
Shouldn't black people have that same thing? Because I never
we have. The thing is like everyone has it. The issue is how society reacts to it. So if society doesn't let you say what you want because it's going to disown you or not buy your product.
Remember Arsenio Hall when he dared to have the Jews told him, don't have Farrakhan on your show and stop having some of these, after the LA riot, he had certain rappers on making controversial statements. They went after him, took his show, and he disappeared for 20 years.
That's why you have to be an owner.
Right.
That's why you have to be an owner you can't be an employee, because if you're an employee, then whoever it is you're working for, they're the ones with the power. And they can define what you can say and what you can't say because it's their show. It's not your show.
Right.
You know, that's true. Right. You know what I want to say, though, the lesson in all this is, what the powerful lesson in this is that these brothers had millions of dollars. And their response was to stand up at halftime, and what I heard, listening to the radio, the team didn't know what to do. Some of the brothers said we should protest, we should boycott. Other brothers said, no, we got to play. Some wanted to, not kind of do the national anthem thing at halftime. Some others did. So there was no consensus amongst all of them. There was no unity on how to respond because, they were worried about the paycheck. Obviously, I get that, that's real. But the thing is, the proper response would have been to empower the community of L.A. See, because the problem is that here's a man who's so arrogant, but he still sees us as second-class, sub-rate people. But what we need to do, like I said, no person can rise above the condition of their people. The proper response to the Clippers would have been like, okay, is that so? Then I'm going to take these millions of dollars that I got, I'm going to go to the black community, I'm going to open up some businesses, and I'm going to start changing the face of the black community. And then when the people in that city, the black community, starts to rise up, then he can't make a comment like that because we prove him wrong. So that
I got a better solution than that.
Please do.
I got a better solution than that.
Please do.
Create a black league. Create our own league. The problem is, I mean, if you look at our history, we had the black baseball league. And then what happened in order to integrate, we want to be with them, we want to, whatever. We gave up. I mean, so many black players basically were out of, SOL because of this change for integration. And that has always hurt us. Right. And it's giving them the power. It's shifting the power back to them. So if you don't want to be in that situation, you have to own it.
Something else you want to look at here, I'll just deal with the law for a second, and that is the fact that you have a situation where you have assault, and then you have a situation where you have battery, and then you have assault and battery. And assault means that you verbally made a sign or a gesture or a verbal statement that was actually offending or reaching out to offend a person, and it's against the law to assault a person verbally. Now, if you assault and batter a person for 400 years in slavery, if you verbally demean them and physically rip their families apart and do all the different things you're doing, and then come year 500, you turn around here and says, well, I'm not battering you anymore, but I want to reserve the right to assault you. I'm going to address things from the standpoint of politically correct. Then, you can't really go anti-politically correct when you are the actual predator that was assaulting and battering that other individual. And I think that's where the politically correct comes in to say, hey, you know what? Your rights to continue to assault a person has now been ripped away because you treated this person so bad. You're not, like Malcolm X would say, you're not of a moral authority to continue to verbally assault and say the things you've done. Because your people, you're living off the fruits and labors of the destruction that your parents did to these people and that the criminal system and everything else continue to do to these people. So, I love all you guys' viewpoints because every one of you guys is saying something that makes a lot of sense. But when we deal with it from the standpoint of assault and battery, I think that the individual that has perpetrated the assault and perpetrated the battery cannot come along a couple of years later and just continue to assault you. I just think that's a little bit.
I'm going to say they can, because the issue that we have is we buy into the legal system as a tool for justice. It's equality. That's what it's about. But really, it goes back to I think what Devon was saying earlier about knowledge and how it can be used for good or for evil. When they use the law, they use the law to protect themselves. What they are is a guilt-free predator. Okay, it's just like any animal in the wild that kills its prey, and the justification is, well, I got to eat. Okay, so Europeans will come after us and do whatever they can to get food off of us, to live off of us, but they don't want the guilt. So in order to not have the guilt, they have this political correctness. They have laws about, the verbal assault and all that stuff, so that they don't have to feel guilty. They don't want the feeling, the emotion, the negative emotion of it. But they still do the actions. And the law protects them. And most of the times, whatever law you're talking about, it's not going to be enforced upon them. It's going to be enforced upon you. Because they're the ones in power and you're the one who isn't.
Yeah, and that's very unfortunate. But when you are still in possession of stolen property, whether you're stealing our legacy or stealing our assets, which means the terra fauna, the earth from underneath us, they cannot stand here and continue to verbally assault and say, hey, I have a right. No, you are still in the process of the crime. The crime is still taking place.
Right,
the crime is taking place.
Right. I think that's their entire history. It's a history of predatory everything and getting away with it.
Yeah, also, like I said, one thing I point out, I was in a debate with some white guy a couple of months ago, and I basically said, look, you can say all you want, we can go back and forth, but you have to understand one thing, one thing that ends it all. We never asked for any of this, we never asked for any of this. When you come to that premise, we never asked for fraud here. We never asked for your names. We never asked for your language. We never asked for your flag. We never asked for anything for this country. All this was imposed upon us. And so if we basically don't agree or saying that we want what's ours and this, that, and the other thing, they have no right. I mean, it's the epitome of arrogance to tell a group of people after all 500 years you want to be grateful for giving us a little bit of what they should have never taken in the first place. When you tell me if you don't call us nigger, I ought to be grateful because you're not calling us nigger in our face. They're just saying behind our back. So we should be grateful for that. They're not lynching us, but they're doing it in other ways with the police and everything else. It's just insanity, It's just madness. We're all intelligent brothers here. We can manifest our frustration and other things, like what we're doing with Black Wall Street, KemeticPipeline. That's how we channel our anger. But to the average brother who can't lash out, his anger is manifest into self-destructive behavior. That's what I see.
Right.
All my anger, I have the same anger that the average brother on the hood does, but I do my things in constructive ways, through blogging, through social media, through building with other people, with you brothers, That's how I channel my anger. So that's why we have to take this anger that's in us right now and channel it and go full forward with Black Wall Street, KemeticPipeline, or whatever we're going to do.
Right, Kyle, brother Kyle, I couldn't have capped it off better myself. Channeling that anger, channeling that frustration into a creative and positive means that's going to get us something in the end, instead of just